This is PopHealth Week on Healthcare Now Radio. PopHealth Week is brought to you by Health Innovation Media. We bring your brand narrative alive via original or value-added, digitally curated thought leadership content for omni-channel distribution and engagement. Connect with us at www.popupstudio.productions. Welcome, everyone. I'm Gregg Masters, Managing Director of Health Innovation Media and the producer co-host of PopHealth Week. Joining me in the virtual studio is my co-founder and lead co-host, Fred Goldstein, President of Accountable Health, LLC. On today's show, our guest is Nate Maslak, co-founder and CEO of Ribbon Health. According to their website, Ribbon Health, quote, offers the most comprehensive, accurate API data platform that is the infrastructure for a future where every patient care decision is convenient, cost-effective, and high quality. Built to integrate seamlessly into existing healthcare workflows, Ribbon offers a reliable and straightforward way for providers, care navigators, health plans, and digital health solutions to develop and maintain accurate provider directories and competitive networks, simplify referral management, and ensure efficient care navigation, all in one platform, end quote. For more information, follow on Twitter via @RibbonHealthAPI. So, Fred, with that introduction, over to you.
Welcome to PopHealth Week.
Thanks for having me on.
It's really a pleasure. Why don't we begin with your background, and then we'll talk a little bit about Ribbon Health.
Excellent. My background before starting Ribbon Health, I spent a few years as a consultant with McKinsey & Company, focusing primarily on our healthcare clients. So spending a lot of time with both hospitals and large payers, thinking about their transition to value-based care. That was about 8 or 9 years ago, and we're still thinking about the transition to value-based care. So I think that could be a nice prelude to some of our conversations today. After a few years there, I joined a technology startup called Datalogix around our Series A, a little bit of an earlier stage than where Ribbon is today. Built and ran one of our products there that was focused on predictive analytics. And then we took that all the way through an acquisition by Oracle, spent a little bit of time there, but knew that that was probably not going to be the next step in my career. And so I took off to business school, and where I was lucky enough to meet my co-founder and where we started what became Ribbon Health.
And where'd you go to business school, by the way?
At Harvard Business School.
Oh, of course. The Harvard, right? Fantastic. That's great.
The one and only.
Business school, the one and only. Great place. We'll talk a little bit about what is Ribbon Health and why did you decide to start that?
Yeah, so our vision as a company is to power every care decision to be convenient, cost-effective, and high quality. That's always been the case. This was really born out of a personal pain point that both my co-founder and I had experienced in different ways navigating the healthcare system. And I'm happy to get into that if that's helpful. But when we started out, we were a care navigation platform. So we're actually helping people figure out what to do when they were sick. And we spent about a year doing that. We were selling it to employers, and pretty quickly through that process realized that the real problem that we were facing was the data underneath our platform. And as we tried to fix that, we learned that others also needed help doing the same thing. So today, Ribbon is a data platform that is powering other healthcare solutions, which includes health plans, and includes provider groups and systems, and patient-facing solutions anywhere where a care decision is being made. So we're helping provide information on providers. So who is this doctor, or where is this location, which insurance plan a given doctor accepts, and the cost and quality of care that is being delivered in those points of care, so that anywhere where those care decisions are being made, we can make sure that they're powered by the most accurate and the most comprehensive information.
So as I understand it, you actually create or have up-to-date directories on providers. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And I think we think about it as a director in the most holistic sense. I know a lot of the industry, when we hear directory, we think about things like phone numbers and addresses and specialties. And that is absolutely foundational. That's where we started. Just to kind of go back to our care navigation days, when we were starting out, people absolutely loved the product. They were engaging regularly. We had 80% month over month engagement. And then all of a sudden, it just dropped off and our NPS plummeted and our engagement went to 0 and people were angry at us and we couldn't figure out what happened. And as we spent more and more time with our users, we would really hear the stories of what would happen after they used our product. And people would say, hey, I finally got my husband to go see a doctor. But when we showed up to the doctor's office, we showed up at a bank. And so moments like that, or doctors who had moved or doctors who stopped practicing 15 years ago, kept occurring. And we realized that long before you can even think about the cost and quality problem, you have to solve addresses and phone numbers and specialties, the building blocks of the rest of it. But then taking it more holistically, we don't think that that's enough to make a care decision. It's necessary, but not sufficient. And so our product not only has information on that directory, but also, is this doctor in my insurance plan? Do they do the procedure that I need? Like, is this a hip surgeon for people like me, or is this a knee replacement surgeon for somebody not at all like me? And then, are they cost effective at that procedure? And what are the quality indicators of that provider's performance, so that I can make sure that when I choose where to get care, or when somebody else guides me to get care, where I guide somebody else to get care, I can be confident that that's the right place.
Mm-hmm. So this is a huge issue. Obviously, there have been, documented cases in the press about people signing up for a health insurance plan and then finding out the doctor they wanted is not in it. Yep. Or like you said, the address they got for that doctor is the wrong place. How do you get that information? What are you using to do that without revealing any proprietary secrets?
Yeah, happy to talk through that. So we take the general belief that the right information is out there somewhere, that somewhere the provider has listed their correct address or the right phone number. But what ends up happening is, because there's so many different health plans interacting with so many providers, providers are busy, providers move, contracts change, hospitals buy practices, all of this information gets fragmented across the board, and it also lives in a lot of different silos. So our approach is to first find all of the information that could possibly exist on a given provider. So we have data flowing in from over 1,000 different data sources at any given time. We aggregate that across the open web. We have partnerships. We buy data. We tap into open government data sets. If there was information out there in space in a provider, we would send satellites and try to mine that as well. If it's out there, we want it to hit our system. But then we need to figure out what's right and what's wrong. And just to give you a sense for the mess, I'll just focus on phone numbers for a second, but you can imagine the complexity beyond that. We see 50 phone numbers per doctor hit our system. And I personally don't know a single doctor that's picking up 50 phones. So we know that most of that is wrong. And so we need a way to figure out, how do we tease out the truth? And so we build machine learning algorithms that are able to figure out if 800 sources say that Dr. Smith is at 123 Main Street and they accept this insurance plan and they do this procedure, and 200 say that she's somewhere else and that she doesn't do that procedure, what's the probability that either or both of those combinations of information are true? We assign a confidence score to that, and that's what we actually distribute within our product. And the vast majority of our customers leverage our API. So we actually build into their existing workflows so they can actually see when they're making a referral. Yeah, of course, this doctor is listed at 57 different addresses, but we know that these are the two that they're actually practicing at.
And so as your algorithms have done that, maybe to get into a little more of the detail, when you say, at the end of the day, out of 100 practitioners, let's say you have in your system that you've gone to validate a phone number or address, what percentage of those are correct when you've run your machine learning algorithms against that?
Yeah, so those are going to be usually around 90% accurate for a random sample.
Mm-hmm. So about 10% of the doctors still were having difficulty getting the right address and phone number for it.
Correct, which is terrible. We've done a lot of studies. We've gone head to head. And as far as we know, Ribbon is the most accurate, the most comprehensive solution out there. And we can celebrate that. But if you really think about any other context or setting, if you were looking up a restaurant on Yelp and 1 out of every 10 restaurants just wasn't there when you showed up, you would be pretty frustrated by that experience. And yeah, I think it speaks to how far we have to go as a healthcare system, that 90% is something that we celebrate, as opposed to really lamenting that it's only 90%.
So let me ask you on another data point that's perhaps more difficult. Maybe you're going to tell me it's not. What about the individual provider being within a specific insurance plan? What percentage do you see on that?
Yeah, we'll see that be much more accurate.
Really?
Because it's just a yes, no for that one plan. And so it's a little bit simpler from an algorithmic standpoint to be able to predict. The challenge becomes which provider and when, because network data changes so often and so quickly. It's much more dynamic than how often providers move. Though you'd be shocked how often they actually move as well. And so on that standpoint, when we think about how we can track network data, it's making sure that we have that data as up to date and as fresh as possible. And I think that that's a problem that's a little bit easier to solve, especially with the push in the industry to make that data more open and accessible.
So are you pinging like on a monthly basis? Because as you said, providers sometimes, man, they're in the network, they're out, all of that. Is that sort of how you're doing it?
At least monthly. Honestly, the biggest limiting factor that we have is how often this information is updated within the health plan or by the provider, because there is a lag. But as a patient, I don't really care that there's a lag. If I show up and they say, hey, you're not a network, so your call, do you want to take an out-of-pocket, out-of-network cost or go somewhere else? It's not really reassuring to me as a patient to hear like, well, this data was collected a few weeks ago and things change. And so we want to make sure we're pushing to make that as up to date as possible.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about this other data element or data you're gathering, which is around quality. So what are you using for that and what are you gathering and then how do you score it?
Yeah, quality is a notoriously difficult question. And for us, what we really try to ascertain is not, is this a good doctor or a bad doctor? I don't believe that that notion exists. Good at what? A doctor who's good at something might not be good at something else just based on their area of expertise or what they've dedicated their lives to. And so we really try to hone in on objective quality indicators. We look at procedure experience scores. So what has been the historical complication rate for a given provider on a risk-adjusted basis for this type of procedure, as just one example. Every specialty has different indicators, every procedure has different indicators. And so for us, it's really important to have an empathetic approach, not only to what patients are looking for, but also what providers are doing, so that we can make sure that we're able to provide the most up-to-date information. On top of that, we also layer on things like patient satisfaction score, which is really important in my view, and to a lot of patients and a lot of referring providers. And then also really trying to expand the notion of quality scores, not just to what we see in, say, claims data, but to be able to have this data come back in from our customers. One thing we haven't talked about yet is Ribbon's customers contribute data back into Ribbon. They edit, they update, and we're moving towards that on quality as well.
That was my next question. You know, it's one thing to get the quality scores, say, from a CAP survey or some other stuff that's out there, and it's another to get it from your actual users, and so you're beginning to integrate that data as well?
We are. Yeah, as I think about how the industry has historically collected quality data from patients in a really good high-touch setting, after a referral or after a visit, you get that phone call that's like, hey, how are you feeling? And the person on the other end of the line is there to decide good or bad. But I might have had an incredible surgery, but I feel bad because of something totally different that happened in my life, or because I stubbed my toe or whatever else it might be. And so in that moment, I, as a patient, can say, like, I'm not feeling great, actually. My mood is affected by that. And so instead, what we are building out in our current product is the ability to be able to track National Quality Forum and other kind of vital research institutions approve metrics that are patient friendly. So for any given procedure, there might be 10, 20 different metrics, but one of them could be objective. So can you walk better since your surgery? Are you able to drive now? You weren't able to drive before because of your eyesight. And so being able to collect that data, try to get that at scale and have that feed our algorithms to see what else is predictive of those types of outcomes.
So who's making the decisions on which one of those data elements you ingest?
We're doing that internally in terms of being able to share what are the patient-friendly outcomes. So we do our own research in-house, and we're really trying to build up towards that now to be more holistic and comprehensive. There are a lot of procedures and a lot of metrics to track. So we're chipping away. And then our customers are the ones that are actually interacting with the patient. And so for them, it's actually a value prop. It's to be able to say, oh, now I can collect better information on how I'm navigating or how I'm referring and track that information for myself. And we can pool that together.
Uh-huh. And do you have physicians or clinicians within your organization taking a look at that, or an advisory group, or orthopedic experts, say, and cardiologists, et cetera?
We do, yeah. Yeah, as much as I would love to unilaterally just be able to say which metrics look and sound the best to me, or to somebody else on the team, we, as somebody who's not a physician, we think it's really important to be able to get those vetted and validated. And so we have built up and are continuing to build up our clinical advisory team.
And if you're just tuning in to PopHealth Week, our guest is Nate Maslak, co-founder and CEO of Ribbon Health. For more information or to learn more about their work, follow them on Twitter via Ribbon Health API.
And do you have the ability, let's say I was a provider out there and I look at your system, or your system lists me as junk, or something like that. Do I have an opportunity to interact or to respond to some of that?
Not yet, but that's something that we're building towards. And there's a couple of reasons why for now that we haven't built that out. The first is where the product stands today, we're really building on things that are historically objective. We look at claims data. We've built one of the biggest, if not the biggest, claims data asset in the ecosystem. And so we can understand, like, this is how many procedures you have done relative to your peers. And so we really try to keep it to objective quality indicators. Simultaneously, we don't believe that Ribbon will just often solve the whole quality problem that the whole industry has been trying to solve for a long time. And so we're also partnering with a lot of other companies in the space that do their own research built on different data assets. And we incorporate those both into the product, but also side by side with our metrics, because we want this to be comprehensive. A lot of those metrics and those partners are, in fact, going out and doing exactly what you mentioned. And so we're getting the physician input through that way. And we've really made our focus around, like, what is objective retroactively. And over time, if we start to make more subjective calls, then we do absolutely want to make sure that providers have a chance to contribute back in. And I think providers have a reasonable need to know, why did this score come out the way that it did? So they can also think about their behavior relative to their peers. A lot of our partners are already doing that again today. Not a space that we've been in historically, but something that I think, should we enter, we should absolutely have that opportunity.
So can a provider see their score?
Providers can see their scores through one of our customers. So
right.
Ribbon's product is data distributed via an API. And so we have no intention to build a direct-to-consumer tool to compete with our customers. Mm-hmm. But we are powering a lot of different platforms out there, provider-facing, consumer-facing. We powered care decisions for 10 million people last year, so it's pretty far-reaching. And so through that, providers can see that. But our customers are actually taking the data that we're providing, and they might just pass that through directly to a consumer of their product, but they could also build their own quality scores on top of that. We believe we need to be an objective input into that. But for a highly specialized use case for a given specialty, our customers have a really strong perspective on what constitutes quality for their member. And they might disagree with another member. And so the scores could actually come out a little bit different. We believe it's important to be able to democratize that.
And have you been able to see changes in patient behavior based on the use of your platform?
We do. What we see across our customers is that providers who are rated as being either more cost effective or high quality are more likely to be looked at and likely chosen. One of the big things that we're looking to do going forward is actually really be able to close the loop on those patients and understand, did they actually book an appointment with that provider? The only way to really accurately be able to do that is for us as Ribbon to be that source of appointment booking. So that's one of the products that's actually down the line.
Well, could you, theoretically, you could go ahead and say, well, Fred Goldstein looks like he looked at Dr. Mary Smith, and then go and catch a claim on Mary Smith, right? Because you're pulling claims data in.
Potentially. What's important, though, all of our claims data is anonymized. So we don't deal in patient data. We really focus on rolling up patient data. We have an anonymized ID, but we would need some way to know that Fred Goldstein is this anonymized ID, and that's not something that we do today.
Absolutely. That makes some sense. And what has been the response from your clients?
So the response from our customers has been overwhelmingly positive. I think it speaks to the pain point in the market. When we were building a care navigation company and we were trying to figure out the right data on providers, we were looking and looking and looking, and we couldn't find anything that was accurate. NPES, one of basically the public government database that you can download, which we just assumed without ever testing, which is our mistake, would be accurate, was what was actually driving a lot of the concerns of people showing up to banks or doctors that had moved. And so I think that there's just been this need for this problem. And unless you've lived in this space, it is a shocking problem to even exist. I remember fundraising off of this for the very first time, and I spent all of my time trying to convince people that phone numbers for doctors could possibly be wrong. And I think the world has come a long way in terms of being able to recognize this problem. So tying it back to our customers, it's been really overwhelmingly positive. The company has been able to grow a ton. We're powering care decisions for over 10 million people a year now, and that's continuing to grow. We're live with around 50 customers now. And we're more than doubling every single year on that front.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at this, so let's say you wanted to close the loop on this, essentially, if the system worked correctly, and you said you have about 10 million customers, do you know what percentage of those that access healthcare go to your system to take a look before they access it, or have any idea on that?
We're not sure. We know that across our customers, we're powering care decisions for about 10 million lives, and that's with a pretty steep haircut. Based on our understanding, working through with our customers of approximately how many they believe are leveraging the products that Ribbon powers. So that 10 million lives customer, to me, that's an actual usage number, not the theoretical amount of people who could, but the amount of people who do. But again, because we're the behind the scenes infrastructure solution, it's impossible to perfectly ascertain how many used it yesterday.
So that's the number that actually hit the system, 10 million at some point?
Yep.
And was that unique, or you're not sure?
Yeah, that's unique. Yeah.
10 million unique people. And so at the end of the day, let's say you did have those 10 million, there were some subset of the population. Let's just pick something like orthopedics, obviously. You potentially could say, we had these X thousands of people hit orthopedics. They chose doctors ABC based upon our algorithms and our quality measure and everything. And we showed improvements in your clinical outcomes and costs. Are you looking to ultimately get there?
Ultimately, we absolutely are looking to get there. Our vision is to make every care decision convenient, cost-effective, and high quality. And just having an API that gets hit by our customers doesn't get you there necessarily. So we need to make sure that we're able to close the loop. And that's why so much of our investment is going into closing the loop by having an API-based appointment booking product, closing the loop by having our customers be able to contribute that patient-reported quality data back in. So you have to make that leap to then be able to start to do a lot of this population-level research that we're discussing. Absolutely, we want to get there, and we want to get there at scale. One of the challenges that we have as an ecosystem, and I think it's going to continue to get more pervasive, is that healthcare should be personalized, and thereby it's going to be fragmented. And increasingly, it's becoming more fragmented with more personalized solutions. So we want to be the horizontal layer behind all of those solutions that can pull all this together, and then we'll earn the right to be able to make those kind of claims.
Yeah, I think your point on scale is critically important to recognize. My personal quality decision maker was my father, who was a physician, and I'd watch him throw other physicians out of the ER who were coming in to see me and say, no, you're not seeing my son, you're getting this one. Well, you can only scale that up so much, you know. Yeah. So I think it's a critically important area. How large is Ribbon Health today, Nate?
So we're at about 75 people on the team. Looking to grow to about 150, 160 by the end of the year.
And are your users typically payors, employers, healthcare systems? What's a typical user?
Yeah, our revenue is split about a third across payors and health plans, provider organizations, which might be large independent primary care clinic chains or telemedicine companies, and a third patient-facing solutions. So a lot of direct-to-consumer tools or tools that are selling into employers and being distributed. So basically all of the ones you mentioned, except for employers, we don't sell into employers, but a lot of our customers do.
Got it. And so these organizations are taking your APIs and pulling them into their system, pulling that data through that into their system, and then showing it to their users through their platform.
That's exactly right. And the reason why we've taken that approach is because we don't believe that Ribbon needs to contribute yet another workflow or yet a bunch more workflows, that there are a lot of great workflows and experiences already out there. But one of the things that they're lacking in is the ability to guide care decisions in a more scalable way, which we think you need provider data for.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other data elements you're thinking of getting or adding in the future?
Always. One of the big pieces of focus for us right now is being able to ascertain the cultural competencies of a provider. So as we think about provider to patient matching, which is at the end of the day, really what we do, we're trying to make sure that the right provider gets matched to whoever needs care. We need to make sure that that provider can not only perform a given procedure, but can also do so in a way where they can interact with that patient or the population of that patient And it's also very hard to be able to get at that data scalably. It's not like a phone number or address where we can see this information in a lot of places. Instead, we're doing this by building partnerships with different companies that will focus on one set of cultural competencies or one population. And I think it's awesome that these companies exist because that's where we need to go to. And then to be able to pull this again at scale, we're building these partnerships and basically being able to say, this provider has been vetted by X company, which has the certification, and leveraging that on and creating that as another filter. But that's going to take some time to get to its scale. But we got to get started somewhere.
So you're looking to pull in essence, class. You know, they've trained their staff in various cultural issues and competencies around that to try to match that up better with the individual patients.
Yep, that's right. So you can start even with just what languages are spoken at this location. That's really important. Second is understanding what types of populations is this provider most comfortable with or most used to or actually certified in treating. Is this a provider that spends a lot of time with people of the LGBTQ community or not?
Absolutely.
Because for a lot of patients, that's really important. For some, not as much. But I think that should be something that they should be able to search on and find the right provider for them.
Mm-hmm. That's great that you're moving into that area. I think it's going to be critically important as we try to identify the best individuals for each patient. As you said, getting to that cultural competency may be in many cases as important, if not in some cases more so than some other skill sets they might bring to the table. Obviously, you want a physician that really understands the disease, or a nurse practitioner, whatever it might be you're seeing, but also to be able to explain to the patients individually their specific needs or wants, and then and provide those services to them. So that's really fantastic. In the last minute or so we have here, where do you see Ribbon Health in 5 years?
So our vision will always be the same. It's to power every care decision to be convenient, cost-effective, and high quality. And so for us, it comes down to two things. One, more care decisions. So making sure we can continue to distribute across the ecosystem. I don't see a reason why any place where healthcare decisions are being made digitally, which in my view is almost everywhere already and will be everywhere in 5 years, all of them should be working with Ribbon to be able to have the most up-to-date information. And second, convenient, cost-effective, and high quality really comes down to what we're distributing and how. So making sure that a lot of the different types of data assets that we've talked about are available so that for the thousands of different evaluation points that a patient might have, and maybe they only care about 4 out of those many, Ribbon can make sure that they're all available in that moment in time so that we're at a place where, I talked about the restaurant example. We think about finding care to be as simple and as clear as being able to find a place to grab lunch in a few minutes.
Well, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us, Nate, and talking a bit about Ribbon Health. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me on.
And back to you, Gregg.
And thank you, Fred. That is the last word for today's broadcast. I want to thank Nate Maslak, co-founder and CEO of Ribbon Health, for his time and insights today. For more information or to learn more about Ribbon Health's platform and solutions, follow them on Twitter via @RibbonHealthAPI. And finally, if you're enjoying our work at PopHealth Week, please like the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Do share with your colleagues and consider subscribing to keep up with new episodes as they're posted. We stream live on Healthcare Now Radio Monday through Friday, 5:30 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Or for you left coasters, like me, 2:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and 6:30 p.m. Pacific. For PopHealth Week, my co-host, Fred Goldstein, this is Gregg Masters saying bye now.